It's now time for our People Helping People segment, and we are going to talk about cancers as we promised you last month. You know, it's October, it's a new month, and it's Cancer Awareness Month as well, but breast cancer awareness. But we on Hope, we're going to focus on cancers. And with us this morning, we have Dr. Anthony Thompson, and he's a medical doctor, but he was employed at the National Radiotherapy Center in St. James in Trinidad, and recently employed with the oncology unit right here in Tobago. Good morning, Dr. Thompson.
Hi, good morning.
Great. Welcome to Hope and welcome to People Helping People.
Thank you.
You are in the hot seat today, and we want answers. I don't want to make it sound so serious, but it's serious, you know. Sometimes you just hear so many different people dying from cancers, or, you know, suffering and seeing different things happening. But it doesn't have to be that way.
No, it doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't.
So, seeing that you would be with us for the entire month of October, God's willing, of course,
Yes.
We will start with the definition. You know, it might sound weird, you know, cancer, everybody should know what cancer is, but maybe not. Maybe not. So, let's start there. I know it might sound like a dictionary question.
No. I think the clearer the concept of what we're fighting against, the more effectively we can fight.
Absolutely.
So when you think of a cancer, you're thinking of a growth, right? And normally growths or new growths are classified as benign or malignant. The malignant ones are what we would commonly refer to as cancer. Now, this growth, what makes a growth a cancer is that it has several features. One is its propensity to continue growing. The second is its propensity or ability to invade the surrounding tissues. And the third is its ability to spread to distant sites. Yeah. And anytime a growth exhibits those features, it is then classified as cancerous. Now, those, of course, are features of the tumor or the growth on a macroscopic or gross level. But if you get down to the microscopic level, what you see is a cell that started it all, that underwent what we call malignant change. Yeah. Now, just to clarify that a bit, each cell has basically an instruction manual, right? It tells the cell what to produce, how many times to multiply and then stop, when to die, right? And basically to stay put, because you're recycling your cells all the time. What happens in malignant change is that at a genetic level, a cell will lose a number of these important instructions or have alterations to these instructions, which will then allow the cell to continue multiplying, to spread to distant areas, and to basically stop producing what it's supposed to produce. Yeah.
Interesting.
So you end up with this big, aggressive, non-functional mass of tissue from this original clone or original cell.
I'm trying to find the question to ask next, because I'm still playing it out in my mind, the entire definition. But you know what it is. I'm hoping that everyone understands what it is as well. Break it down a little bit more for me in lay terms.
Right.
Yeah?
Okay, so your body is composed of millions or billions of cells, right? Each cell is a unit so small that you can't see it with your naked eye. You need a microscope to see it. And inside each of those cells, you have the instruction manual as to your entire body, right? Now, each cell has a specific function, and that function is determined by the program written in the cell's instructions. Yeah? What happens is that through a number of steps, not just one step, not just one change, but a number of changes, you develop this one cell that's totally disregarding instructions. And in doing so, it's able to multiply indefinitely, right? And every time it multiplies, its daughter cells have the same damaged genetic code or genetic instruction manual that it had. So then all these cells now have the same features. Yeah?
Yes.
No. So when you go from the microscopic level, right? So you end up with a number of changes in the DNA at the genetic level, right? These influence the behavior of one cell. This one cell multiplies to give a tumor composed of a number of these identical cells, all of which have faulty genetic code. And then those cells are able to leave where they're supposed to be located and travel to other areas.
That's so interesting. How? So the cell is based in our body.
Correct.
But so
Yeah.
now, what the process is, what might be contributing to creating that bad cell? Is that a okay
Well,
question?
okay, that's a perfectly legitimate question,
Right.
because remember we said it was a number of steps.
Yes.
It's not just one change in a cell that will make it go rogue, right? What you need is a number of steps, because for every step there are sort of switches.
Right.
Yeah, there's things that switch on and things that switch off. So for instance, let's take the gene that instructs the cell to multiply. Yeah. Well, you will have alterations to that gene that might signal the cell to keep multiplying. Right? That's one potential change. Likewise, for the same gene, that gene would have a mechanism to switch it off. The cell might lose that off switch mechanism and hence stay permanently switched on to multiplying and just
Right.
keep going through endless cycles of multiplication. So there's a number of different areas genetically, a number of different steps that you require, right? A number of different faults or errors that you require to become a cancer cell. Now, some of these errors you may actually be born with, right? You may have inherited it.
You're right.
But then a number of environmental exposures over the years will trigger further changes. So one change is not enough, right? But over the course of your lifetime, cells are constantly undergoing changes.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
And yeah, go ahead.
So ideally, I remember in our interview with Dr. Patap saying, any cancer could be given, or anybody could get cancer, because he was saying anybody could get, once
Correct.
the mosquitoes are around, it could happen to anyone. So cancer is not, it's not going to discriminate. It can happen to anyone because the cells are within our bodies.
Correct. And every last one of them potentially
Yeah.
could end up with a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They're all susceptible to
Right.
things. So, and that's why you see such a wide variety of cancers. You could literally get a cancer from the top of your head to the sole of your foot.
Wow.
Any cell could
go
go rogue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To go rogue is the
Yeah,
word.
I would say
Okay.
rogue is a very apt description.
Right. Yes.
Because
yes, I
basically
understand.
it's one member of your body, one
Yes.
cell, one part of the team that's refusing to fulfill its role and is going to consume resources for its own benefit and survival at the expense of the team.
Of the others. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That is very interesting. So can we now talk about some of, you mentioned the inherited cells. Is it
Well,
the cell or
no,
what
you
is
inherit your
inherited?
genetic code from your
Genetic
parents.
codes, right.
Yeah. So for instance, you may
Mm-hmm.
a family line may
Right.
already have a gene that's being passed on that
Correct.
predisposes them. So
Right.
for instance, they talk about the BRCA gene, which is passed in some families and is associated with a higher risk of breast cancer. So for instance, Angelina Jolie,
Right.
that's why she had a surgery apparently, because she was found to be BRCA positive.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's an inherited thing. So out from the time you get out the starting blocks, you're already carrying
Yeah.
this faulty gene,
Yeah.
right? A couple more hits throughout your lifetime, and then eventually,
You're prone to it.
yeah.
Interesting. That BRCA sounds like something else to it. It sounds like a cable.
Yeah.
Right, but let me just not try to make jokes within this interview. It's serious. I really want you to get the point. I want you to understand where I'm at. So the genetic things that are inherited.
And
right?
then over the
And
course of your life,
environments, right.
environmental factors can impact on the genes you're already born with
Right.
and cause even further changes.
Further changes.
So to use an example to illustrate,
Mhm.
if you, let's take a good example. Take tobacco smoke and the lining of your lungs. Well, the carcinogens stimulate changes and damage cellular DNA. And that's how the smoking contributes to your increased risk.
Right.
Yeah. Take, for instance, bowel cancer. You may be born with a genetic predisposition to bowel cancer. It's running in your family. There are genes that predispose you to that. And then what happens is, over the course of your life, the foods you consume, right, actually create environments in your bowel that can actually promote
Yes.
carcinogenesis. So, it's a number of different. Take cervical cancer, for instance, the human papilloma virus splicing its DNA into your cell's DNA damages your cell's DNA and causes the changes that will trigger the cancer.
That's so interesting. As you start talking about that, because when you check up STIs and see the long-term causes or long-term things that might happen to you, eventually, you probably wonder why. But now you're making so much sense by even tying the HPV with the cervical cancer, because that is one of the causes. Eventually, when you get the HPV, STI, sexual transmitted infection, and knowledge is key, everyone. Knowledge is so important. Once you start to understand something, would understand why things happen in our lives, why this might go a certain way or whatever.
Yeah. Everything is a process.
Yeah, everything is definitely a process, because you have me here in awe too, to some extent. So, as you're talking about process.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, as you're talking about process. Let's talk about the process, the cancer process.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes?
Now, let's think about it in terms of common things are common.
Right.
What are the common cancers that people get? Right. Just to list them here for Tobago, in the Tobago space, you're looking at prostate cancer, breast cancer, cancer of the cervix, and cancer of the bowel. Now,
these are common cancers.
These are the four most common cancers in terms of new cases of cancer as well as deaths due to cancer here in Tobago. Yeah. Now, if you looked at all of them, the process isn't going to start at birth.
Right.
Yeah. You may be born with some genetic predisposition to
Right.
it, some changes that are already there, but over the course of your life, environmental exposures may lead some of us to manifest a cancer while others won't. Yeah, even though we're all from the same family, we're not all going to die from the same cancer that granddad had. Yeah, because of environmental exposures.
Exactly.
And that gives us, because it's a process, that gives us a sort of point of intervention to lower the chance of something happening. It would be great if we could protect everybody from everything, but at least we can lower the odds of certain things happening. And then later on, because it's a process, remember, it's not going to start with a tumor the size of my head.
Right.
It's going to start with one cell. And that cell is going to multiply 1 to give 2, 2 to give 4, 4, and so on and so on.
Right.
4 to give 8, and etc., etc. What's going to happen is that at some point, that mass of cells that's growing, that tumor that's growing, is going to become detectable. And there's some tests for some of these common cancers that can actually give an early warning of something happening at a point when it could be solved easily. Yeah. And to me, that's the key of understanding it as a process. That this is not something that falls from the sky. That if I, for instance, I'm 37 now, let's suppose I were to die at, let me give myself 65 years.
God forbid. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Let's say I give myself at 65 to die from bowel cancer, right? Just to use an example.
Yes.
I didn't wake up on my 65th birthday with this massive tumor. This thing was growing inside of me for a while.
Right.
And then if you imagine, well, it's been growing inside of him, but what about the environmental changes? What about those things that he was eating that predisposed him to it? Well, I've been eating those for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, all my all my
Different.
animal fats and this
Yes,
kind of thing.
yes.
Yeah, that's going to be pushing me in a direction,
Yes.
right? All my love for chicken and chips and, and
Yeah,
whatnot.
fried foods.
Yeah, my fried foods and my
Fried
bad
foods.
diet, that's been pushing me along
This line.
this thing. So the process starts even before the tumor starts.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And even as you mentioned that, because I noted the common cancers that you mentioned, right?
Mhm.
So ideally, based on my understanding of cancer and the definition of cancer, yes, the cell is there, but then when the one cell becomes rogue and or hereditary or environmental contributions can now change this entire thing. So ideally, as we go along throughout the month, I would like to find out probably some of the things that would contribute, if it's to this one cell or to breast, to the breast
Mhm.
cancer or to cervix, as you said, you would have spoken about the bowel.
Yeah.
Would you, so, we will look at the specific things that one can eat or not eat for that matter
Right.
when it comes to the specific types of cancer. So definitely, hope listeners, you can look out for that throughout the month. We're gonna get your pen and your paper and just try to learn more and to do more for yourselves and your family and your friends, even your enemies. Help them out a little bit. Yeah. So.
I mean, it's so true. In the early 1900s, right?
Yes.
The most common cancer in the United Kingdom was scrotal cancer, and it was
Right.
seen predominantly among chimney sweeps,
Okay.
right? Because they were on top of the chimneys,
Yeah.
and they were getting all these fumes
Yes.
with carcinogens
Wow.
coming up from the thing. You never saw cases of lung cancer, or seldom saw cases of lung
Yeah.
cancer.
Yeah.
But over the course of the 20th century, as tobacco use increased, and there were fewer and fewer chimney sweeps, basically scrotal cancer came down and lung cancer went up.
Went up.
Yeah, based on just a change in environmental exposure.
Well, change of where the smoke was coming from as
Yeah,
well.
which end we were putting the smoke
Yes.
on. That's very good.
Yeah. So is that it for the process? As we went through that process with the definition process,
Well, let's take it a step further.
right?
So, I've become a rogue cell, and I've started multiplying, but I'm still just a bundle of badly behaved cells in one location. Up to this point, I haven't gone anywhere, right? What happens in a lot of cancers, they sit on something called a basement membrane that separates them from blood vessels and lymphatic channels, right? But once they penetrate that basement membrane, they now have access to the bloodstream and access to the lymphatic channels. So they can spread from the original site, right? Via the lymphatics, they will spread to the nearest group of lymph nodes, or what we call
Right.
glands in common speech.
Yeah.
From the blood, they can actually send micro deposits, small clumps or clusters of cells that can set up shop in other areas. So for instance, a person with a tumor starting in their breast, right? That tumor can spread to their lymph nodes or their glands under their arm, but it can also spread via their bloodstream and set up shop in areas where the blood has to pass. So the common areas that you'd see it set up, secondaries or what we call metastases, would be the liver or the lungs or the bones. Yeah.
That's interesting.
So you start off with the tumor in one place, and later on, it goes for a ride and it sets up shop. And each of these new tumors, these secondary tumors that have set up, then starts to elaborate its own blood supply, gets nutrients, starts to grow, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
So, would you say I don't know what is more dangerous? It's dangerous on the whole one, but what is more dangerous? It traveling through the blood or traveling through the lymph node or the gland?
Basically, you have to look at them as sort of one and the same, because
Same thing, okay.
they're not the same thing, but
Right.
functionally, if you got to a gland, then I know that you had access to blood vessels as well.
Okay.
And it's the blood vessels that are going to take you to the organs, right? So for instance, I can do without my arm, right? If I lost my arm, I would not die, right? If I lost my liver, that would be a
A kind of
that would
detrimental
that would be
thing, yeah.
that would be the end of the show. Yeah. If I had a tumor deposit in my foot and I lost my foot, it's not a problem. If I had multiple tumor deposits in my lungs,
Yeah.
that's going to affect my breathing. That's going to be
Be
more
difficult,
dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Difficult.
So
Right.
what you're really trying to avoid, right? The whole point of intervention is to stop people from getting to that point where it's spread to those vital organs,
Right.
either the lung, the liver, the brain. The brain is a terrible place for it to spread to,
Yeah.
because what's happening in that situation is your skull is this fixed volume container, but you have this thing inside of it that's growing, and it has no room to grow.
Wow.
So what happens is that the pressure inside the brain or inside the skull becomes raised, and that's what actually will cause the person's demise.
Hmm.
So
That is really graphic. I'm really sorry.
but you can imagine.
Yeah, I'm imagining
Yeah.
it right now, and it's really graphic. Continue.
But
Yeah.
again, all part of a process, and we intervene in this process at different stages
Yeah, right.
to try and get a better outcome. Yeah. Of course, the best part to intervene would be to prevent it, to not get it at all,
Right.
right? And that being able to make that sort of intervention requires that we have to know what our family history is. Yeah. What did granddad's sister die from? Because that's the only way I'm going to know what genetic susceptibilities I may have. Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of people can't really tell you what their parents died from
No.
or what their grandparents died from. Yeah.
And sometimes you think these medical practitioners are bold when they ask you that question.
Yeah. Why
because
mind
you
them a
ask,
business?
what are you allergic to? Do but the thing is, you see now how necessary it is to know your background, to know if you have any strain or possibilities of anything.
And a lot of times, for
Yeah.
instance, you sit with a patient and you're asking, well, they can tell you that granddad died from a cancer.
Yeah.
Which one?
I don't know.
And they couldn't say, well, it was something in his abdomen. Well, yeah, but most of these stories may end up somewhere in the abdomen.
Yeah.
Was it stomach? Was it bowel? Was it small bowel? Where was it? Because then we're trying to figure out what the person sitting in front of me has a higher propensity to or not.
Right.
Yeah. Once you get that, one step up from that, for some cancers you can actually do genetic screening. Yeah. It's not commonly used in our context, but it is something that exists.
Right. But when you say it's not commonly used in our context, we can't get genetic screening
We
here?
we do it for, I know we can do some level of BRCA testing in
Okay.
Trinidad and Tobago.
Right.
I know there is a geneticist that does some of these screening tests, but it's not a widespread part of it. I can't tell you when last I heard someone say, well, I went
Yeah.
to check for this gene. Yeah.
I understand.
Now, once you get past that, now you can't change your family history.
No.
You are who you are, right? You can't fix that.
But
at
I
least
could change mine from when I'm starting to make my children. No,
Fair
I'm joking. No, that's a joke. But yes, I know what you mean. It's
Yeah.
hard now when it is you live a bad life or carry about a bad lifestyle that cause so many medical implications on yourself, and now you have children, and then they now carry it on,
Yeah.
and they have children, and they might do the same thing. Sometimes it's a domino effect
Well,
with lifestyle habits.
well, put it like this, just to clarify that point.
Mhm.
These genes that you pass on are not necessarily
Lifestyle.
affected genes
Right.
from. So, for instance, if I'm a smoker and I get a lung cancer, that doesn't mean that my offspring will have a higher risk of lung cancer, right? Not necessarily. They may have it from being exposed to my secondhand smoke,
Okay.
but not from inheriting damaged genes that I have. Yeah.
Okay.
Where you sort of have it is that for some family lines, and there's some families right here in Tobago,
Mm-hmm.
where everybody sort of died from the same thing. Yeah. That's what we're looking for.
And because even,
Yeah.
but then it could come as a twofold. Well, I don't want to say twofold, but because, okay, Grandpa A smoked around his children,
Mm-hmm.
right? His children, well, at 5 and 6 and 7. So now by the time they're
Mhm.
15,
Yeah.
they want to smoke,
Correct.
right?
So sometimes the behaviors are
And then
passed on.
It's a part, yeah. So it's a kind of behavioral, what to call it, domino. That you
Yeah.
know that it just you die from it because you just pick up the trend. But I understand what you're saying with
Yeah.
regards to hereditary
Correct.
and genetical transfer, rather.
No.
To put
So-
it in the correct term.
So you can't fix that part of
Yeah,
it, right?
understood.
So it's what we call a non-modifiable risk factor.
Right.
But then you come to modifiable risk factors, and you look at your lifestyle. Yeah. So what am I doing that may be increasing my risk of developing a cancer? And practically everything could fall under that list.
Yes.
Yeah, the fact that we notice a rise in breast cancer rates as obesity levels rise in a population is well documented. The fact that in some parts of the world it's recognized that change in diets, animal fats and sugars, processed sugars, right? Less vegetables, less fiber, right? We realize that pushes up the rates of occurrence of certain cancers.
Certain cancers, right.
Yeah, and those are things that we can fix. For instance, when we talk about hope, we talk about fighting against breast cancer or fighting against cancer on the whole. There are parts of the world where the death rates from cancer are actually coming down.
Excellent.
Yeah. If I could just, point out a resource for everyone.
Sure.
The European Code Against Cancer, right, it was about 7 or 8 things that they set down, right? And it was some of the most basic stuff. It was
I'm
eat
quite
more
sure.
vegetables and fruits.
I'm quite sure most times the easiest things
Yeah.
we have are the hardest things for us to do because we're comfortable with our lifestyles and I like my meat on my plate and
Yeah.
we like a lot of provisions. Listen, I'm a Caribbean girl, I'm a Tobagonian, but I love these things too, but you have to now portion them
Yeah.
in a
You
way
can
that
have them, but just not
every day.
every day and not the
Yeah.
whole plate.
Exactly.
and it was simple things, and it wasn't go get cancer and run out and get the most expensive drug you can find. What it was eat your fruits and vegetables, participate in organized cancer screening programs. It was simple stuff like walk more, get enough physical activity, moderate
Sunlight.
physical activity, and get some sun.
Yeah.
It was really simple
Simple
stuff.
stuff.
And
Simple stuff.
and it worked.
Well, I'm definitely gonna get that information. I
Yeah.
hope we don't get I'm gonna get the information to share.
It's the European Code Against Cancer, and it's
Right.
it's the most it's the most unimpressive, simple kind of thing.
Yeah, because
you know?
you would expect it to be something more detailed and do this,
Yeah.
do that, the
No,
other.
nothing fancy, nothing that comes out of a bottle. Just very ordinary, good, healthy lifestyle habits.
Well, Tobago, we have these simple things here. We're in the Caribbean. We have fruit trees grow here, a lot of them. Vegetables as well. So
Yeah.
just make it easy, make it natural. I don't want to be too harsh and start to put my lifestyle changes on you. But definitely, if we're fighting cancers, we need to start somewhere, as Dr. Thompson is saying right now. So as we wrap up, because this is where we end, tell us, give us something to close with.
This is something that we can win. This is something that we have to win, right? The storm that is brewing in terms of rising cancer rates in our population in Trinidad and Tobago are going to overwhelm our health services. Yeah. If we can't beat this, then this is going to define us. Just to use an example, there's been so much progress made between when I was a boy and I first heard about HIV to now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Huge progress has been made. And we need something similar with with cancer. We need, that mission to the moon, that thing that organizes our thoughts and aspirations. And it is achievable. We can actually beat cancer here in Tobago, in Trinidad and Tobago, and I would say in the developing world as well.
Excellent. And you will definitely help us this month, Dr. Thompson. Next week we're gonna focus on breast and cervix cancer, and we're gonna go down the line. So keep, if you have to buy a notepad, whatever you want to do, just get a working pen or a pencil, and let's make notes. Let's make changes for ourselves. Let's help someone along the way as we fight cancer this month. As Dr. Thompson says, it can happen, the possibilities exist. So this is where we wrap up People Helping People. This is Holding On to Positive Expectations. We head back to some music in a short while.